What's up, guys? Welcome to Touchdown Talk, your podcast where everything and anything football goes. We have a special Friday episode for you guys today, all because of the NFL draft that took place last night, round one last night in Vegas. We had a crazy, epic, amazing night one of the NFL draft, and we are going to be talking about all 32 picks, all 9 trades, and that one quarterback that was selected in round one. So let's get started where the NFL draft got started, with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, with the first overall pick in the NFL draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars selected Travon Walker, edge out of Georgia. Now, this is a great pick and a great fit for both sides. I really like Walker going to Jacksonville. I think he's really going to help that defense. He's really going to go great along with Josh Allen, who's on that defense. I think their edge rushing duo that they have now is going to be really good with Walker and Allen there. And he's really going to fit in well with Jacksonville. They're a young team that's just getting started, and Walker is a great addition to that team. With the second overall pick in the NFL draft, the Detroit Lions selected edge rusher Aiden Hutchinson out of Michigan. I like this pick for Detroit. You're keeping the guy in Michigan, keeping Hutchinson in the Motor City, just moving facilities from Michigan's to now the Lions. I think it's a great fit for both sides. Hutchinson gets to stay home. I think it's a really good position to be in if you're Hutchinson. You get to go into that culture now with Dan Campbell, and it's an honor to be able to play in there. Not everyone could fit the culture, so for Hutchinson to be picked at number 2, they know that he's going to be able to fit into that Dan Campbell culture in Detroit. With the third overall pick in the NFL draft, the Houston Texans selected cornerback Derek Stingley Jr. out of LSU. Now, I like this pick for Houston because they get their cornerback. They lost Justin Reed in free agency, so they needed to replace that defensive back room with someone, and now they get their young guy at number 3. They really like Stingley. A lot of mock drafts towards the end of this week, right before the draft, really had Stingley going. A lot of the experts kind of had him there. And now it's official. Stingley is a part of the Houston Texans. So I like the pick for Stingley. He's going to be their number 1 guy, their star caliber corner on that team. And he's really going to be able to lead and upbring that defense that is young. That team is rebuilding. And now he's going to be a part of that rebuild from the ground up. With the 4th overall pick in the NFL draft, the New York Jets selected Amon Sauce Gardner out of Cincinnati. I think this is a great pick for the Jets. You could tell that he's going to fit really well with the Jets because of his personality. You could see him last night. He was rocking the Sauce chain. So I think that he's really going to fit in well in New York City, in the Big Apple. His personality is going to fit really well with the New York Jets, and especially New York City. So I think the Jets getting their guy, he's going to be their starting cornerback, and he's really going to help that team from day one. With the 5th overall pick in the NFL draft, the New York Giants selected edge rusher Kayvon Thibodeaux out of Oregon. Now, this pick is really interesting to me. I didn't see this coming at all, but I do like the fit. The Giants needed help on the defense. They needed an edge rusher, and they were able to fill that void, fill that need with Kayvon Thibodeaux. Just like Gardner, he's going to be able to fit in well in New York because of his personality. If you watch the draft, he was dancing, jumping up and down. He had a handshake going with Roger Goodell. I think that his personality and how excited he is, I think he's really going to fit in well in New York. The only concern is how he talked, some of the answers he gave, him leaving the combine early. But overall, the Giants are going to get a good player who's going to really be able to help that defense if he is 100% committed to the team. With the 6th overall pick in the NFL draft, the Carolina Panthers selected offensive tackle Ike Ekwonu out of North Carolina State. Sorry about that. I just had to see what college he came from. I forgot real quick. But all in all, great pick for the Carolina Panthers. I really like the selection here for them. He's going to be able to protect that quarterback that they have there, whether it be Sam Darnold or if they bring in another guy, maybe draft a guy in the 2nd round. But I do like the pick because he's going to be their franchise tackle now. He's going to help that offensive line, help the team get better in any way he can. He could also move to guard if they need him to. But Carolina now, I think that they're going to trade for Baker Mayfield. Don't think Sam Darnold's the answer. But I do think if they could trade for Baker Mayfield, now they have an offensive tackle to protect him. So Baker coming off of an injury, he has more protection on the line. So there's a less injury risk with a better offensive line. With the 7th overall pick in the NFL draft, the New York Giants selected offensive tackle Evan Neal out of Alabama. I like this pick for the Giants because I think they needed offensive line drastically. They have not been good at that position. They've really missed on a lot of guys. But now you have Andrew Thomas on one side, now Evan Neal on the other side. So you're really going to be able to protect the outside perimeter when you have edge rushers coming in. So say the Jaguars having Allen and Walker come in, now you have Neal and Thomas blocking them. I think it's really good for the Giants. They needed offensive line help, especially to protect Daniel Jones or another quarterback if they do want to bring someone else in. Now with the 8th overall pick in the NFL draft, the Atlanta Falcons selected wide receiver Drake London out of USC. Now this was a pick I don't think many people saw coming. I don't think many people had the Atlanta Falcons taking Drake London. But all in all, great pick for Atlanta. They're going to get their surefire number 1 receiver. They don't have Calvin Ridley. He's suspended this year. So now bringing in Drake London, he's going to be your number 1 guy, pairing him on an offense to where he's going to be paired with Kyle Pitts and Cordell Patterson at that receiver running back role, along with a mobile quarterback in Marcus Mariota, who is, in my opinion, going to be a bridge guy for them to take their guy next year in the draft, or get a franchise guy that's already solidified him in free agency. With the 9th overall pick in the NFL draft, the Seattle Seahawks selected offensive tackle Charles Cross out of Mississippi State. Good pick for Seattle. Russell Wilson was complaining about not having an O-line, and now you're bringing in an offensive line for Drew Lock, who is not as mobile as Wilson, not as good as Wilson, but now giving him O-line and protection, it could help. And then if you want to draft another quarterback in round 2, or maybe get a guy in free agency next season, or maybe go to the draft next year, you have a franchise offensive tackle who's going to be able to protect your quarterback. With the 10th overall pick in the NFL draft, the New York Jets selected wide receiver Garrett Wilson out of Ohio State. Great pick for the Jets and great selection right here at number 10. You're going to pair Garrett Wilson with Elijah Moore, who the two of them is really going to be a great wide receiver duo. They're both young. Now you have Wilson coming into his rookie year. You have Moore going into his sophomore year. You have Zach Wilson at quarterback going into his sophomore year. And Michael Carter going into his sophomore year at running back. So now you're going to get those jokes. Oh, Wilson to Wilson. Zach Wilson to Garrett Wilson. You have the Wilson to Wilson connection now in New York. Great pick for the New York Jets. They hit on both of their picks in the top 10. Two great selections for the New York Jets. Both are going to help their team drastically this upcoming year. Now at number 11, this is where we saw our first trade of the night. Trade number 1 out of 9. And right here we had the New Orleans Saints trading with the Washington Commanders. Now the New Orleans Saints move up to number 11. They get the 11th overall pick in this year's draft. And Washington receives the 16th overall pick, the 98th overall pick, and the 120th overall pick in this year's draft. So 3 picks for 1. I think it's really going to help both sides. Both teams are going to benefit from this trade. Now with that 11th overall pick, the New Orleans Saints selected wide receiver Chris Olave out of Ohio State. Back-to-back Ohio State receivers taken. Wilson at 10 and then Olave at 11. I think the Saints needed a wide receiver and they traded up to get their guy. In my mock draft, I had Chris Olave going 16 to the Saints, but they didn't want to risk him falling to another team. So the Saints made the trade up. They gave up 3 picks and they got their guy in Chris Olave. Now, Olave is going to come in, be paired with Michael Thomas. They were tweeting at each other, so they're both really excited to be paired with one another. Now, if Mike Thomas can get back onto the field, you have Alvin Kamara in the running back position, and then a great fill for Jameson Winston at that offense. Winston, coming back from an injury, is getting a better offense now with Chris Olave. He could get Mike Thomas back if Mike Thomas is on the field, and that could be a good offense if they all could mesh well together in New Orleans. Now, with the 12th overall pick in the NFL draft, the Detroit Lions traded up with the Minnesota Vikings. Now, this was a weird one because you don't really see divisional teams trading with each other, and the Lions had the 2nd overall pick. So now, at number 12, the Detroit Lions traded with the Minnesota Vikings. Now, the trade details for this consisted of the Lions getting the 12th overall pick and the 46th overall pick, while the Vikings get the 32nd overall pick, the 34th overall pick, and the 66th overall pick. A weird trade overall because you're getting a division rival. The Vikings are helping the Lions jump up 20 spots to number 12. And with that 12th overall pick, the Detroit Lions selected Jameson Williams, wide receiver out of Alabama. Back-to-back wide receivers taken. Now, this is where we really saw that wide receiver run start. And it's a great class for wide receivers. I think everyone was talking about that. And now, Jameson Williams going to Detroit. I think it's really going to help Jared Goff if he's the guy, or if Detroit drafts a guy in the 2nd round. I think Detroit really likes Jameson Williams. He's really going to help the team. They brought in DJ Chark at wide receiver, now Williams. They're building that offense around the quarterback position. Now, if that's Jared Goff this year, or if it's another guy, that quarterback is getting a wide receiver who's going to be a day one guy for that team along with DJ Chark. Now at number 13, we had another trade, back-to-back trades. At number 13, the Philadelphia Eagles traded up with the Houston Texans. Now the Philadelphia Eagles in this trade get the 13th overall pick, while the Houston Texans get the 15th overall pick, the 124th overall pick, the 162nd overall pick, and the 166th overall pick. Now, it's a lot to move up 2 spots, but the Eagles wanted to get it done because in every mock draft, the Baltimore Ravens at 14 were slated to get Jordan Davis, the defensive tackle. So with that 13th overall pick, the Philadelphia Eagles selected Jordan Davis, defensive tackle out of Georgia. They traded up 2 spots, traded a lot to get him, but they wanted to hop in front of the Ravens and get their guy at defensive tackle, who is now going to be in a room with Fletcher Cox at that defensive tackle position. He's going to be able to learn from Cox, learn from Hargraves, and really help that defense out when it comes to the season. Great trade for the Eagles. Great selection for the Eagles. Davis was one of the 3 teams that he visited was the Eagles. He said his mom is a diehard Eagle fan, so that family really wanted to go to Philly, and now they're going to be able to. His mom is going to get her dream. Her son is going to be playing for her favorite team, the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, with the 14th overall pick in the NFL draft, the Baltimore Ravens selected Kyle Hamilton, safety out of Notre Dame. Now, Baltimore was mocked to get Jordan Davis, but with the Eagles selecting him, the Baltimore Ravens selected a safety. Now, if you look in depth on this, them drafting a safety might push them out of contention to get the Honey Badger. So with Tyrann Mathieu still looming and the Ravens drafting a safety, that could be a little insight to Mathieu not going to Baltimore. So with a limited amount of teams Mathieu can go to, Baltimore could be out of the mix, drafting a young stud at the safety position. Now at the 15th overall pick, the Houston Texans, they got that pick from the Eagles. So now with that 15th overall pick, the Houston Texans selected Kenyon Green, offensive lineman out of A&M. Now this is where the Texans got their offensive lineman. They got their cornerback at number 3, and now they got their offensive lineman. Now they didn't want to take one at number 3, they wanted their corner. So now at 15, because they traded, they get their offensive lineman in Kenyon Green, who is going to be able to help that offense and protect their quarterback, Davis Mills, this year, and Davis Mills next year, or another guy next year. We don't know what Houston is going to be doing at that quarterback position. With the 16th overall pick in the NFL draft, The Washington Commanders got this pick from the Saints in their trade. So with their 16th overall pick, the Washington Commanders selected wide receiver Jahan Dotson out of Penn State. Now this is a great pick for Washington. With the news surrounding Terry McLaurin, you had to get another wide receiver. You can't really rely on McLaurin to get every single catch, every single reception, every single target for your team. You're going to need a guy who can help him out sometimes. Now they have Curtis Samuel, but he was hurt last year. So now bringing in a wide receiver in Jahan Dotson, who I think is going to be a guy in the NFL, a dog in the NFL. I really like Jahan Dotson, and him going to Washington is a great move for both sides. Now he gets to learn from McLaurin, be paired with McLaurin, and they could be a really dangerous duo come next season. And with the 17th overall pick in the NFL draft, the Los Angeles Chargers selected offensive guard Zion Johnson. Now, this is a great pick for the Chargers because they're protecting Justin Herbert. Last year, they got Rashawn Slater to protect Herbert, and now they're getting Zion Johnson. They got guys on the offense, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and now they're going to protect Justin Herbert. A great move for the Chargers, a phenomenal choice at 17. They get a guard to protect Herbert, and now Herbert gets the protection that he needs for them to really succeed next year. Now they get to take that extra step. Now at number 18, here is where we got a massive trade. This was one of the biggest trades on draft night, consisting of the Eagles and the Titans. Nobody saw this coming. The Philadelphia Eagles received wide receiver A.J. Brown, and the Tennessee Titans received the 18th overall pick and a third-round pick. Now, this is not a lot if you look at it. Now, A.J. Brown gets a new deal with the Eagles, a 4-year, $100 million deal reported by Ian Rappaport on draft night, and the Tennessee Titans get the 18th and a third. Now, A.J. Brown going to Philly is a massive, massive deal for the Eagles. They get to pair A.J. Brown with Devonta Smith. That is a dynamic wide receiver duo. We saw Jalen Hurts video FaceTime A.J. Brown, which is right here. He FaceTimed A.J. Brown after his trade, and they were being able to FaceTime. They were talking. Now, Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown were just working out with each other, and then Jalen Hurts went to A.J. Brown's daughter's birthday party. So I kind of saw maybe an A.J. Brown to Philly thing. I thought that maybe Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown were in talks about it, but I didn't think that it was actually going to come into fruition. But now on draft night, the Eagles trade that 18th overall pick. So instead of them drafting a wide receiver that was left on the board, they wanted a surefire guy in A.J. Brown who solidified himself as a star in the NFL. Now, A.J. Brown has dealt with injuries, but he is still an amazing wide receiver. He's a top wide receiver when healthy, and now he gets to go to an offense with a young quarterback in Jalen Hurts, a young wide receiver in Devonta Smith. They have Dallas Goedert there at tight end. That is going to be a phenomenal offense come this season, and I'm going to make a prediction early. The Philadelphia Eagles will win the NFC East this year. Yes, the Philadelphia Eagles will win the NFC East this year. I think A.J. Brown is going to make that much of a difference for the Eagles. But moving on to the Titans, with that 18th overall pick, the Tennessee Titans selected A.J. Brown's replacement, wide receiver Treylon Burks, out of Arkansas. And the Titans replaced A.J. Brown with Treylon Burks. Now, we saw the Minnesota Vikings do this with the Buffalo Bills when they traded Stephon Diggs to the Bills, and then the Vikings got his replacement in Justin Jefferson. So, Treylon Burks, if he does live up to the expectation and he is the Titans' version of Justin Jefferson, this deal could be very worth it for the Titans. They weren't able to pay A.J. Brown, and that's why A.J. Brown went to Philly. He gets a $100 million deal. Now, the Titans didn't want to pay him. There was a report that they offered him $20 million, but now he gets $25 a year with the Eagles. So now Tennessee drafting Burks. I like the fit. I do think that Burks is going to fit well. Now, they have Robert Woods on that offense, who I am a huge fan of. I love Robert Woods. And now pairing him with a young guy, Burks can now learn from Robert Woods, and they could be a dynamic duo come next season. Now, with the 19th overall pick in the NFL draft, the New Orleans Saints selected Trevor Penning, offensive tackle. Now, this is a good pick for the Saints. They get to protect Jameis Winston. They got Chris Olave. Now they get an offensive lineman. So they're really building that entire offense around the quarterback position. Now, Winston's probably going to be the guy this year. Now, he does look good with the Saints. He had a good record last year before getting injured. So I think it's a good move for Winston and the Saints. But on the other side, this could be for next year if they do go another quarterback. They could be looking to replace Winston next year if he doesn't perform well. But that offense is revolving around that quarterback position. Penning will likely replace that offensive tackle, Terron Armstead, who the Saints did lose. So Penning will probably be the Armstead replacement for the offense. Now with the 20th overall pick in the NFL draft, here is where we got our first quarterback selected. The Pittsburgh Steelers took Kenny Pickett out of Pitt with the 20th overall pick. Now just like Hutchinson, Pickett gets to stay in the same city. He gets to stay in Pittsburgh, just moving facilities from Pitt to Steelers. Now, Pittsburgh was able to see him, his every move, all his practices. They're right next door to each other. And then Pittsburgh made the move to get him at number 20. They didn't take Malik Willis or any of the other quarterbacks. They wanted Kenny Pickett. They saw stuff they liked in him from seeing him every day, hearing what he's been doing. So Kenny Pickett was the only quarterback selected in the first round, and Pittsburgh gets their franchise guy. Now, it's going to be interesting to see if Kenny Pickett is the day one starter. He is going to be competing with Mitch Trubisky for that starting role. So seeing what he can bring to that team, I like the young team that they're bringing. Now, Pittsburgh hasn't had a losing season since Mike Tomlin and Big Ben. They have never had a losing season with Big Ben at quarterback, so big shoes to fill if you're Pickett or Trubisky. One of the two of them are going to need to lead this team to the playoffs, a winning record, to keep that streak alive for Mike Tomlin and the team. With the 21st overall pick, here's where we got another trade. Now, this trade came a surprising one as well. The Kansas City Chiefs and the New England Patriots. This was weird because the Patriots and Chiefs making a trade, but yes, they did. The Chiefs received the 21st overall pick, and the New England Patriots received the 29th overall pick, the 94th overall pick, and the 121st overall pick. Now, with that 21st overall pick, the Kansas City Chiefs got their guy, Trent McDuffie, cornerback out of Washington. This is a great pick for the Chiefs. They need a defensive back in that locker room. They lost the Honey Badger. They brought in Justin Reed. They have L'Jarius Sneed at corner. And now bringing in Trent McDuffie, it's really going to help that Kansas City Chiefs defense. I like this pick for the Chiefs. I like the fit for McDuffie. The third best corner in this draft goes to 21 to the Kansas City Chiefs. With the 22nd overall pick in the NFL draft, the Green Bay Packers selected linebacker Quay Walker out of Georgia. Now, a surprising pick here, but when you look at the board and you saw all the receivers get taken, you kind of knew the Packers weren't going to go with another wide receiver. So, on the Pat McAfee show, their draft spectacular last night, Aaron Rodgers went on and he was speaking on the Green Bay Packers as they made their 28th overall pick. He said he knew the direction the Packers were going. They had their 6 wide receivers on the board, but all 6 were taken. He was in the loop what the Packers were thinking. He knew that they liked Walker, and 28, he knew that they liked Devontae Wyatt. So he kind of knew that the Packers weren't going to go a wide receiver. He then went on to talk about the role that they've had with second and third round wide receivers and the success they had with those guys. So it does look like the Green Bay Packers will draft a wide receiver in the second or third round. But all in all, the Packers get 2 defensive stars, and Aaron Rodgers was in the loop about what the Packers are doing, which is a great first step in their connection. Rodgers and the Packers being reunited and their connection being reestablished, the trust being there, and Rodgers wanting to know what's going on. He's getting that information, which is a really good first step in the right direction for the Packers and Rodgers. At number 23, we had another massive trade. This trade included 3 teams. Now, prior to this trade, 23 was with the Arizona Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals then traded number 23 to the Baltimore Ravens in return for Marquise Hollywood Brown. Now, Marquise Hollywood Brown goes to the Arizona Cardinals, and the Baltimore Ravens get the 23rd overall pick and the 100th overall pick. 2 picks for Hollywood Brown. Lamar Jackson was not with this trade at all. He was livid. He even tweeted out, right there, you could see his tweet. He retweeted that. You could see how Lamar Jackson was so mad about this trade. Lamar Jackson was not having any of it, and it just goes to show that the Baltimore Ravens didn't believe in Hollywood Brown. They got their guy in Rashad Bateman last year, and now Baltimore, with that 23rd overall pick, then traded it to Buffalo. And then Buffalo was at 25, so then Baltimore moved to 25. The Bills jumped up to 23 ahead of the Cowboys. And with the 23rd overall pick in the NFL draft, the Buffalo Bills selected Kaiir Elam, cornerback out of Florida. Now this was an interesting move, a 3-way trade. Baltimore moved up with the Cardinals. They got rid of Brown, and then they moved back to 25 and let Buffalo move up to 23, and then Buffalo therefore drafted this corner. I think this corner will help out the team in a sense. I think that right here, this corner, he's going to play opposite Tre'Davious White. I think he's going to be able to learn from White, look up to White in a sense, and be able to take into account what White can do and then try to put that into his own game. But then with the 24th overall pick, the Dallas Cowboys selected Tyler Smith, offensive tackle out of Tulsa. Now, Tyler Smith was an interesting guy coming into this draft. I had him going number 31 to the Bengals, but now he's going to Dallas. Dallas needed an offensive lineman. We knew they were going to go O-lineman. And now they get their guy at the O-line position in Tyler Smith. Going to be interesting to see what they do with him, where they put him on the O-line, and how they really shake up that O-line to try to make it work next season. Because it was not working last year. It hasn't worked in a couple of years. There's been some injuries to it. Now they just lost Connor Williams to the Dolphins in free agency. So now I guess this is a Connor Williams replacement in a way with Tyler Smith coming in. He'll most likely play tackle. They might move him to guard. It's going to be interesting to see what Dallas can do with this player. Now at number 25, then the Baltimore Ravens were then on the clock. The Baltimore Ravens selected Tyler Linderbaum, center out of Iowa. Now Baltimore, I knew they needed to go O-lineman. They needed to help out Lamar Jackson. And Lamar Jackson wasn't happy with this pick either. I think that Lamar, after seeing what transpired, he wanted a wide receiver. I think that's what Lamar wanted. He wanted, I guess, a wide receiver to replace him in a sense. But they are going to protect him. Lamar needs O-line. He needs to be protected this year, especially with the play style that he likes to use. He runs a lot and he passes, but he's more of a runner. He gets outside the pocket, and he's going to need someone to protect him to give him extra time. With the 26th overall pick, this was another trade. The New York Jets moved back into the first round for their third first-round pick in this year's draft. Now Tennessee moves back. The New York Jets traded the 26th overall pick. They get the 26th overall pick. And they get the 101st overall pick in exchange for the 35th overall pick, which goes to Tennessee, the 69th overall pick, and the 163rd overall pick. So 3 picks in exchange for 2. Then Tennessee moves back 9 spots. Not too bad if you're the Tennessee Titans. You get to move back 9 spots. The guy you want is not there, which is fine. Then you get to move up at the 69th spot. And then you get another pick later in the draft. So a good move for Tennessee. But the Jets hit on this pick. A Last Chance U player from JUCO. He was on Last Chance U. Now he went to JUCO, and now he's back now he's in the NFL, not back. But he had a crazy journey. He went to a couple of schools, didn't like it, then went to JUCO, went to UCC, had Coach Jason Brown, Now he went to Florida State, and now he's drafted in the NFL, the 26th overall pick. The New York Jets select Jermaine Johnson from Florida State. What a journey from this kid. I watched Last Chance U. That's where I know him from. I saw his time there with Jason Brown. Jason Brown was at the draft. He was talking with Jermaine Johnson, posted a video on his Instagram, on his Twitter. And Jermaine Johnson going to the Jets is another great pick for the New York Jets. And let me just talk about this. I'm going to release some draft grades for each team later on. But the Jets was an A-plus draft, no doubt about it. They get Gardner at 4, Garrett Wilson at 10, and then Jermaine Johnson at 26. This was a guy that people had going in their top 10, and the Jets were able to get him at 26. A great pick, jumping ahead of the Jaguars, who were at 27, who traded into that spot with the Bucks. So the Jags saw the Jets go, and then they traded up. So the Jets trade up, get into 26, and they get 3 studs in the first round. Great draft for the New York Jets. Now it's time for the Jets to turn it around and start playing some football. At number 27, the Jacksonville Jaguars traded up with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to move up to 27. The Bucs move down. And just this pick by the Jags with the 27th overall pick, they draft linebacker out of Utah, Devin Lloyd. A great draft for the Jaguars. They get 2 linebackers, 1 straight-up linebacker, and then Walker at the edge position. A good linebacker. This you would have to think is a replacement for Myles Jack, who they released, who ended up with the Steelers. So this is a Myles Jack replacement. Then you have Trayvon Walker at the edge position. A good draft for the Jaguars. Really good trading back up into the first round to get their guy at linebacker. Now with the 20th overall pick, I mentioned this earlier, the Green Bay Packers selected Devontae Wyatt out of Georgia. Now what was crazy is, I talked about this earlier, Aaron Rodgers was in the loop on what was going on, which is great to see from the team. I really like how Aaron Rodgers was involved. He got to hear from the team. They were talking to him about it. And it's really good to see that they were in talks about what they were going to do in the draft and how it was going to go. So good pick from the Packers. Good communication with Rodgers. Overall, good draft for Green Bay. I got to think that they go a receiver with their next pick. Now, number 29, this is the Patriots pick from when they traded with the Kansas City Chiefs. The Patriots drafted Cole Strange, offensive guard out of Chattanooga. Now, what's interesting about this is there was a video of Sean McVay and Les Snead basically laughing at the pick, saying that they didn't watch much on him because they thought he was going to go later. But the Patriots took him. Obviously, Bill Belichick sees something in him to use his first-round draft pick on the guy. And then at number 30, the Kansas City Chiefs, with their second first-round pick, drafted George Karlaftis, edge out of Purdue. Now, this is a guy who's going to help the Chiefs' pass rush game. He's going to help the Kansas City Chiefs in a way that they were really missing last year. Just like the Buffalo Bills, they were missing that edge rush guy. The Bills got Von Miller free agency. The Chiefs draft Karlaftis here. So it's going to be interesting to see how the AFC plays out because of all the top teams and the other teams that are really using free agency in the draft to really boost their squads, like the Jets, like the Jaguars, lower-end teams who could see more wins this season if it does come down to that. I think the teams that are young, they have to come together. But there is promise for those younger teams, especially teams like the Jets, the Jags, and the Dolphins who got Tyreek Hill. They are one of the teams that do not have a first-round pick, however. Then at number 31, the Cincinnati Bengals selected Jackson Hill, safety out of Michigan. Good pick for the Bengals. He can learn from one of the best in the game, Jesse Bates, and he can play that second safety position. It's really going to be good for him learning under Bates. That way he could put Bates' gameplay mixed with his gameplay to become a really good player. He was a good prospect. Now he's on the Cincinnati Bengals at 31, Super Bowl runner-ups who lost to the Rams. At number 32, this was the Lions pick, which they got from the Rams. And then when they traded up to 12, this became the Vikings pick. So with the last pick in the first round, the Minnesota Vikings selected Lewis Cine, safety out of Georgia. Now, what's interesting about this pick is he was the 5th Georgia player taken in the first round. This has not been done before. It's been quite some time. 5 Georgia players in the first round, all on the defense side. Crazy to think. You had Lewis Cine, you had Devontae Wyatt, then you had Quay Walker, who played with Wyatt. In addition to that, you had Jordan Davis, who went to the Eagles, and then the first overall pick, which was Kayvon Walker. Good draft for the Georgia boys. Great to see those dogs back in the mix, back on NFL teams. I don't know why I said back, but they're on NFL teams now. They're back together now in the NFL. Georgia boys are taking over the first round. I do want to mention something about the 9 trades. It was crazy to see all the different trades. We had Hollywood Brown get moved, A.J. Brown get moved. It's just crazy to see these receivers get moved, and especially with A.J. Brown. There was a report that said Jalen Hurts was in the Eagles' ears whispering about going to get A.J. Brown. I mentioned this earlier when I did talk about the trade. I like the move for the Eagles. I think it really puts them in a great position to win that division. I think they do win the division. Dallas lost Amari Cooper. They got rid of him, and they really didn't replace him. They signed their same guys, and then they did lose another wide receiver who was lower end on their team, but really came into fruition at the end of the year. So I think Dallas might struggle a little more than they did last year. I think last year they had more of a compact team, even though they had injuries. But other than that, this will conclude the first round of the NFL draft. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, click the like button, drop a comment in the comments. Comment down below what you think might happen in round 2. And comment down below if you are happy with what your team did in the first round. And like always, I will see you guys back next week.